The saga kicks off with an immense volcano violently erupting under a burning sky. In the sprawling jungle below, we see armored warriors moving with purpose. But it's not just these heroes in this primordial world. There are terrifying monsters here too. As the determined adventurers push their way deeper into the untamed wilderness, a grotesque skeletal monster erupts from the trees right behind them. It unleashes a horrifying screech that echoes through the canopy, immediately alerting them to its deadly presence before it leaps forward for the kill. One of the men instantly responds and channels a shimmering blue aura around his form. He launches himself from the ground, soaring through the air like a missile, and slices the beast into ribbons of flesh and bone before elegantly touching back down. His power is overwhelming and absolutely absolute. He even hits that perfect, stylized anime pose right after his victory. It turns out all of that incredible action is just a high-impact advertisement for something called World's Dispatch. The advertisement screen declares that your future awaits. The main character is clearly filled with envy and desire watching this unfold. Just then, a man calls out to him and puts a firm hand on his shoulder, sharply asking why he is just standing around instead of actually working. The older man lectures that this is the fundamental problem with youngsters these days. He complains that they are always lost inside some silly little fantasy. The young man quickly apologizes for his distraction. The old foreman tells him he needs to clear away all of the vines right away. Our guy immediately affirms he will get it done and sighs to himself that on the very first day, he has already been marked by the boss. The old man keeps yapping about how things were back in his day. The young worker thinks to himself that he absolutely cannot get fired again. He knows he cannot afford for it to happen this time. He fiercely swings his sickle and starts hacking away at the thick, overgrown branches. The old man looks on, utterly surprised, as the young worker clears out the vines one after another with shocking speed and startling efficiency. Later on, we see the results of his work with all the cuttings neatly bagged up. The foreman says he cannot believe that there are still diligent young folk like this these days. As the young worker walks away from the job site, he thinks about how being a dispatcher is truly nothing more than a fantasy for someone like him. The narrative reveals a harsh truth. Earth has actually fallen into ruin. Just like an online game whose service has abruptly ended, Earth completely lost all of its precious vitality. An unknown and absolute being then revealed a single answer for survival, which was to dispatch to another world. Heroes called dispatchers then left the dying Earth to journey to other worlds. Humanity barely managed to survive only thanks to the vitality these dispatchers brought back with them. He holds nothing but desperate hopes to become a dispatcher himself, but he knows his current reality is so much different. He clutches his work tool, a sharp sickle, reminding himself of what his real life is. But deep down, he genuinely wishes he could become one of them. He heads for home after a long day, wondering if they will call him back in for work again tomorrow. He suddenly stops in front of the massive dispatcher reunion center. He notes that there are a lot of desperate people here today too, same as always. He pushes his way through the dense crowd, telling everyone that it is his turn now. We finally learn his name from a tired receptionist. A staff member looks up from a screen and asks if he is Mr. Oh Chansu. He confirms that yes, that is him. He asks the man if there has been any new progress in the investigation he filed. The receptionist immediately pulls up his account record on the screen. It details Oh Chance's balance for the dispatcher family search deposit, showing it is unpaid. The man bluntly tells him that this place is not running on thin air. He states that Chansu does not have enough funds to continue the investigation any further. The staff member coldly tells him to come back when he is ready with more money, and then he immediately calls for the next person in line. Chance begs, asking if he could at least give him some small piece of news. He just wants to know which world they are even in. But a much larger man roughly shoves him aside from the counter, yelling that it is his turn now. Chansu finally leaves the chaotic building. He hears all the other people inside yelling and arguing that everyone there thinks they are the only ones who have real problems. He sighs heavily as he heads up the escalator stairs. He finally enters his small apartment, saying quietly that he is back. He drops his bag on the floor as a small piece of fruit rolls out from it. He then remembers a distant time. He recalls that when he was little, his father was a legendary top-ranked Ritterni. But as Earth's condition had grown much worse, his father was dispatched once again to fight for humanity. He remembers one specific day when they were playing together with a soccer ball. On that very day, his dad was taken away from him, disappearing into a portal. He never returned from that mission. Eventually, his mother tucked him into bed one night. She told him that she was going to go find his father and bring him back home. She said that he just needed to sleep all alone for a few nights while she was gone. She never returned to him either, leaving Chansu completely and utterly alone in the world. Now, after so many years have passed, even the memories of their faces have grown incredibly faint and blurry. Suddenly, a brilliant light from outside his window begins to illuminate everything in his dark room. He scrambles toward the window, leaning out and wondering what in the world is going on. As a giant, blindingly golden beam of energy descends from the heavens, it crashes violently into the distant earth. The sheer force of the impact sends him flying backwards into his apartment, slamming him hard against the wall. He painfully hits his head on the way down, causing a digital clock from a shelf above to fall and strike him squarely, knocking him completely unconscious. Some time passes. When he slowly begins to wake up again, he groans and wonders what on earth just happened. He looks over at his phone on the floor, which suddenly begins to ring and buzz with a disaster alert notification. The alert message states that there was severe turbulence caused by the re-entry of a figure known as returnee, but it also contains news of a state of emergency. It declares that the S-rank returnee is officially retiring from service. Chansu sits in total shock, asking himself what is going on right now. The report shows the returnee, who says that in the end, by failing to protect the god, he had lost every single dispatcher who accompanied him on the mission. He explains that he was tragically forced to return all alone. He can no longer perform dispatches, as he has now lost both the critical ability and the divine qualification. The famous hero continues that after much deliberation, he had no other choice but to announce his complete retirement. He humbly asks them all to please protect Earth in his stead. He begs the world not to lose hope for the future. Chansa declares out loud that this cannot be real at all. He cannot believe the hero not only completely failed a critical mission, but now he is also retiring for good. Just then, a quiet knock echoes from his front door. He wonders who could possibly be there. He walks cautiously towards the door, thinking to himself that there should not be anybody visiting him, especially at this late hour. We see through the peephole what is outside. It is a little white-gloved hand holding up a tablet that asks if he is Mr. O Chansu. The visitor is revealed to be a cute little rabbit wearing clothes. Chansu opens his door, asking aloud if this is some kind of elaborate prank. Then he looks down and sees the tiny talking rabbit and absolutely freaks out, screaming as he falls backward onto his apartment floor. The rabbit calmly peers in, asking again if he is Mr. O Chansu, right? But Chansu is just on the ground, freaking out at the sight of a talking animal. The small rabbit tells him to please calm down. It informs him that it brings wonderful news for him tonight. It formally congratulates him on officially becoming a dispatcher. Chansa demands to know what kind of complete nonsense this is. The little rabbit reassures him that it understands he must be utterly confused. But it insists that it is an undeniable fact that he has been officially chosen. The rabbit continues that if he is truly this suspicious, they can move the entire discussion to another, more appropriate location. As they begin their journey, they traverse through a long, starkly lit tunnel. The rabbit turns and asks him if he possesses any special skills whatsoever. Chansu asks exactly what it means by that question. The rabbit elaborates, explaining that most people who get this opportunity have at least one unique talent. Chansu admits that as he knows, he is not even qualified for dispatch in the first place, other than being somewhat good at trimming trees or flowers. He confesses that he does not have anything that could ever be called a special skill. The rabbit's expression shifts to one of genuine surprise. Chansu notices and asks if the creature really did not know this information about him. The rabbit quickly tells him that it is actually quite all right. It explains that there must be a profound reason for everything. It states that the fundamental fact that he was chosen will not change, so he should not worry himself over it. Chansu marvels, saying to himself that he cannot believe he has really come all the way to the official dispatch center. He wonders aloud if a real chance has finally arrived for him too. The rabbit now announces that they can go inside and continue their important talk. They are now standing before a truly gargantuan and imposing door. Chansu walks up to the monumental door, thinking that beyond this gateway is the very place where the dispatch actually happens. But he finds that he cannot get the impossibly heavy door to budge even a single inch. The rabbit impatiently asks what he is doing. It flatly states that the entrance is not that way at all, and there is no possible way that massive thing would ever open for him. Chansu, bewildered, asks if the tiny opening is really the entrance. The rabbit calmly tells him that is indeed correct, before asking if there is a problem with that. Chansu gets frustrated, saying that surely the rabbit can tell by just looking at it. He angrily asks how he is supposed to get inside through there. The rabbit coolly remarks that it has no problem doing so itself. An exasperated Chansu reminds the creature that is only because it is a small rabbit. He gives up, saying he does not even know why he was expecting anything different. He declares that he will just be going home now. The rabbit suddenly asks if he is sure he will be alright with that decision. It recites his past failures back to him, noting that he failed every single test he took. And in the end, it reminds him that he even received the official finding that he was completely unfit for dispatch. It pointedly asks if he truly thinks another incredible chance like today will ever come for him again. The rabbit then tells him he should not misunderstand its words. It clarifies that it was merely quoting from his own recorded statements, from his own file. The rabbit finishes by stating that in any case, it is a great shame that he wishes to return home. It drives the point home by saying that this is because he is a very special person who was chosen through immense and great difficulty. We see Chansu desperately crawling his way through the impossibly tiny rabbit's door. He wonders to himself what in the world he is even doing with his life right now. At the far end of the tight passage, a bright light shines. The rabbit's voice calls back, telling him to hurry up his slow pace. Chansu shouts back that he is going as absolutely fast as he possibly can. Inside, he emerges into a sleek, futuristic space and is immediately surprised. He remarks that it is a lot more organized and intact than he originally thought. The rabbit asks what exactly he was imagining it would be like. It then announces that there is a world that is perfectly suited for him. Chansu asks if there is truly a different world that fits each individual person. The rabbit confirms this is true, of course. It is a destination called block-type land grabbing. Chansu repeats the bizarre name back to the rabbit and asks what that is. The rabbit seems to wonder if he is genuinely unaware of this place. Chansu states that he has never once heard of it before in his entire life. He asks, full of suspicion, that surely it is not some kind of weird place. The rabbit gets visibly annoyed. It wonders why this human is pretending not to know what it is talking about. The rabbit then lets out a series of fake laughs. It patronizingly explains that he must not be aware that it is currently the absolute hottest destination these days. It continues, saying this unique world has the feature of receiving the divine protection of a being known as a god. Chansu immediately thinks back, remembering that returnee also said that he had served a god during his missions. The rabbit quickly assures him that for his reference, he can rest assured that this situation has absolutely nothing to do with that recent tragic incident. Chansu then asks what kind of god they are talking about for his dispatch. The rabbit explains that according to the original rules of dispatch, a god is assigned completely at random to a new dispatcher. However, it offers a special deal. It says that if Chansu decides what to do right this very moment, it will specially grant him the exclusive opportunity to choose his own deity. The creature then pulls a set of glowing cards out of thin air, presenting them to him. It asks if he is now going to pick his own fate from these options. Chansu does not know what to do at all. He panics internally because he does not even know which one of these is a good option. The rabbit senses his hesitation and tells him that this is a truly rare occurrence. It pressures him, saying that a choice like this, and an incredible opportunity like this, will never, ever happen for him again. Chansu agrees, thinking to himself that the rabbit is right. He knows he does not have any idea when a chance like this will come his way again. He wonders why he is hesitating like such an idiot. He makes his move and impulsively picks the middle card, incredibly anxious about flipping it over. When he turns it over, a terrifying, giant skeleton figure erupts from the card surface. It is accompanied by a swirling vortex of smaller, screaming skulls. Chansu lets out a terrified scream. The card he just pulled was for the entity called the God of Negation. It has some strange percentage listed at the very bottom of the card. The rabbit tells him to calm down, explaining that it is all just for dramatic effect. It asks him why he is so scared. Chansu demands to know why this god required a horrifying visual effect like this to begin with. He then asks what the God of Negation even is, commenting that the name alone sounds extremely unpleasant. He also points out that the probability thing on the card is weird as well. He asks if he can possibly draw another card. The rabbit cheerfully tells him that of course he can. Chansu thanks the creature for the second chance. This entire agonizing process continues over and over and over. He declares that this time will be for sure, but he continuously pulls the card for the God of Negation. He shouts that this whole thing has to be a total scam. He asks how it is possible that he gets the exact same one every single time. The rabbit calmly tells him that there is absolutely nothing wrong with the cards. It looks at him with a dead serious expression, telling him surely he understands this. Chansu starts to say that it is not that there is a problem with the cards, but then he notices the rabbit's face has become incredibly serious. The rabbit informs him that now is his last chance, and he must choose carefully. Chansu silently pleads that anything at all is fine at this point. He just does not want it to be the god of negation again. He desperately begs that it will be something else, anything else. As soon as he draws the new card, a gentle, beautiful floral aura begins emanating from it. He gasps, realizing that he finally got one that was not the dreaded god of negation. This card is for the goddess of abundance, and all it has for a visual effect is a single flower petal. He also notes that the probability listed for her is extremely small. He immediately starts dreaming about what this new goddess would even look like in person. The rabbit silently observes his expression, thinking his gaze is so incredibly dirty. It then breaks his daydream, asking if he wants another chance. Chansu asks what will happen if he decides on this one. The rabbit explains that he will then have to depart immediately. Chansu asks if his departure can be delayed at all. The rabbit questions why he needs to hesitate at a time like this. It explains that this is his golden chance to go beyond being just a simple dispatcher and finally become a legendary returner. Everyone on Earth will admire him. It even suggests that he might even be called a savior of humanity one day. The rabbit tells him to think carefully about his choice. It promises that a life completely different from any he has lived until now will surely unfold for him. Chansu agrees, thinking the rabbit is right. He realizes that if he stays on his current path like this, he will just be running in place forever. He knows that he needs to make the decision right now. A large status window immediately appears before him. It announces that he will now serve the goddess of abundance, congratulating him on his choice. It states that the image of his chosen god will now be revealed to him. He looks up to see the breathtaking deity looking down upon him from a divine realm. She welcomes Chansu to her service. The immense pressure from her presence alone is extremely intense. She calls him her prospective dispatcher. Then her image fades out of view. Chansu excitedly asks if that powerful image was truly her. He exclaims that just the pressure she emitted alone was absolutely crazy. He feels like he can now do anything at all. He then asks the rabbit where he needs to go next. The rabbit declares that his was an excellent choice. It pulls back a large curtain, revealing a swirling portal, and says that it is time for them to be on their way. Chansa screams for it to wait just a minute. The rabbit asks him what is wrong now. Chansa asks if he really has to go inside there. He points out that the menacing, chaotic portal does not look like it is in a good mood. The rabbit asks how he is telling it what an inanimate object is supposedly feeling. It tells him to look at it more closely. Chansa shouts that anyone can tell this thing is a crazy and dangerous-looking black hole. But still, he declares that he refuses to back down anymore. He declares that he will succeed this time and show them all what he can do. The rabbit gets tired of him just standing there waiting. It runs forward and kicks him straight into the swirling portal. Chansu screams out in pure rage and terror. The rabbit says calmly that it will be looking forward to his triumphant return. Suddenly we hear a new voice. It asks the rabbit why it did that just now. The rabbit responds that they already know why. It explains that direct intervention is absolutely forbidden. The other voice replies that they had told it that they absolutely could not lose this boy. The voice asks if the rabbit still has not given up on its god. The rabbit responds with defiance, stating, "Of course not." Chansa then starts to see a system loading screen appear directly in front of his eyes. He wonders what this thing is now. It is a system tip window that tells him a god's percentage signifies the actual size of their faction. He screams in realization that the number was not the probability of drawing the card, but the size of the god's entire faction. This means that he is practically the only person following her. There might be one more person, but it is effectively just him. As Chansu falls helplessly into the other world, he says that he cannot believe he is only learning this critical piece of information now. When he finally looks around at his new surroundings, he sees nothing but barren, dead lands and desolate ruins stretching out in front of him in every direction. He begins to laugh and then to cry, a manic energy overtaking him as he screams out loud that he is totally and completely screwed. He looks out at the dead world and shouts his disbelief into the uncaring wind. He addresses the deity he chose, stating that she said she was the goddess of bounty. He asks where in this entire desolate landscape anything could possibly be so bountiful. Just then, a green status window flashes to life in front of him. Chansu wonders what is wrong with the system window as well. The message welcomes him to the block-type world of digging. It declares that he is the apostle of bounty and his mission is to secure as many land rights as possible through digging. Chance mutters that surely it is not this pathetic just because his goddess's influence is so small. He sees there is even a glaring typo in the system window which only annoys him more. He decides that instead of worrying about the system, he should just look around a bit. His priority now is that he needs to find the goddess. He then stumbles across a familiar object half buried in the dirt at his feet. It is a weathered scythe. He wonders if someone else used it and then simply threw it away. He thinks that it is strangely familiar, so it is actually nice to see a tool he knows. But then, a terrifying shadowy shape with glowing eyes materializes right behind him, scaring him completely. He gasps and thinks that surely it is not already a monster. He complains that he has not even met the goddess yet. He knows a monster is already here for him, so he absolutely does not want to die like this. He quickly decides to just threaten it with the scythe he just found. He lifts it high as the shadow creature makes a noise of pure fear too. Chansa then realizes that he was completely overreacting. The frightening shadow was cast by nothing but a tiny little hamster. He asks himself if he can even really call this thing a monster. He sees that it does not even look hostile at all. He still thinks that since it technically is a monster, maybe he will get something good if he manages to catch it. The tiny hamster begins to freak out completely. It shakes its head back and forth wildly, signaling no. Chansa decides, whatever. He reasons that as long as they do not swarm him, it should be fine to leave it alone for now. The hamster then hops off the nearby rock and starts to waddle away with purpose. Chansa asks where it thinks it is going. It suddenly turns and waves at him, clearly telling him that he should follow it. Chansa marvels that this tiny thing is surprisingly intelligent, and so he starts running right after it through the wasteland. He pants and complains that for a little thing, it sure is fast. He has no idea where in the world it is taking him. Eventually, it begins to chirp excitedly. He finds that it has led him to none other than a small pool of clean water. He immediately kneels down, cupping the liquid in his hands and chugging it as the little hamster does the same beside him. Chansu lets out a sigh of relief, remarking how refreshing it is, and even his new guide agrees with a squeak. He asks the creature if it lives here. He observes that it does not really seem like a good environment for a hamster to live in. He asks it if it knows by any chance where the goddess is, but it is far too busy rubbing its fluffy face and grooming itself to answer. He sighs, concluding that talking to this thing is probably completely impossible. Just then, the hamster starts pointing into the distance. Chansu wonders if it wants him to follow it again. So he gets up and starts doing exactly that. They make their way towards a single massive tree that is much larger than any of the others. He comments on how huge it is, but then notes that it is all dried up too, just like all the dead trees back on Earth. He takes another step and suddenly feels something crack beneath his foot with a nasty crunching sound. He looks down and sees he has just stomped on a tiny, shriveled piece of ginseng. The little hamster starts freaking out completely. It runs over to the crushed plant, grabbing onto it with its tiny paws and crying out in despair. Chansu quickly apologizes. Then the status window reappears, announcing that he has just discovered the god of this entire region. Chansu asks what the system is even talking about. He wonders where in the world the goddess actually is. The enraged hamster starts biting at his leg to get his attention. Chansu tells it that he is busy right now and that he will play with it later. But the hamster insists, pointing frantically at the crushed ginseng on the ground. It then makes a gesture of pure divinity, pantomiming the beautiful form of the goddess he saw in his vision. Then it immediately points back to the crushed ginseng. Chansu finally pieces it all together. He looks over in absolute horror, asking if that shriveled piece of ginseng is actually the god. He declares there is no way that is possible, because the goddess he saw was a very beautiful and powerful woman. He screams that there is no way she is some common ginseng root. He then sees a faint green light emanating off the crushed plant. He says that this has to be some kind of cruel joke. He yells that the goddess he saw was not some damn weed. The hamster then points to a new message box, showing him the fine print from their deal that clearly states the promotional image may differ from the actual product. Chansu finally realizes that he has been scammed. He thinks back to the card game, realizing that the land grabbing and the percentage were just foreshadowing for how bad this really was. He remembers that the percentage numbers even went up when he was just drawing the cards. At the time, he thought it was just some kind of system error. He now understands it was because the influence of the god of negation was actually growing with each draw. He says that he never would have thought it could be a good card when it just kept coming up that often, completely misunderstanding its power. He wonders if maybe the goddess ended up looking like this because her influence had waned so much. He then asks the hamster why she is not even waking up. His tiny companion is still crying over the plant. A horrible thought occurs to Chance. He asks out loud, his voice filled with dread, that surely he was not the one who dealt the final, fatal blow. He says first that he should try to give her some water, and he begins to carefully pour some over the shriveled root. The ginseng begins to magically heal itself right before his eyes. He exclaims that this is good and that he is going to continue giving her more water. This process continues over and over. We then hear the goddess's internal thoughts as she remarks how refreshing this is. She thinks that maybe it is finally raining. She cannot even remember the last time she had water, but she knows that it feels so good. But then she feels it is raining a little too much. She thinks that this is enough, because she is about to completely drown. She then wakes up in a panic, spitting out all the excess water. Chansu gets extremely excited, and so does the hamster. Chansu greets her formally as her apostle. He tells her that he is glad he finally got to meet his god. But she cannot even move properly as she feebly struggles just to wave one of her tiny roots at him. Chansu admits that he has absolutely no idea what to do now. The helpful status window reminds him that he can become much stronger by using his skills. He says he did not even know that he had any skills. He looks and sees a skill called Bounty's Blessing. There is no detailed explanation for it, but he assumes it is obviously for making crops more bountiful. And then he sees there is another one, an active skill called Bounty's Blessing Decapitate. He wonders if it truly means cutting off a head. He says that hopefully it does not mean beheading something else in order to live a bountiful life himself. He tells himself that he does not want a skill like that, and that there is no way his beautiful goddess would give him such a completely brutal skill. He asks her, his voice full of hope, that surely it is not what he thinks it is. She then slowly makes a gesture, dragging a root across her neck like a knife. It is clear that she means cutting off a head. He recoils, saying that he is not going to be able to do that. He asks her if she is really trying to get him to behead someone right now. She simply nods her tiny root head, showing that he is absolutely correct. He tries to rationalize it, thinking that since she is the goddess of bounty, she is probably just related to agriculture. He wonders aloud if that technical term also includes the act of slaughtering animals. He then slowly turns around, looking directly at the nervous little hamster. He says quietly that surely it is not what he thinks. He looks at his new companion with a cold gaze, wondering if the tiny hamster is included as a target as well. The little hamster looks up at him with pleading eyes. Chansu looks down with a shadow cast over his face. He declares quietly that he guesses he just cannot help being an apostle. He raises the scythe high above his head, preparing to bring it down. The tiny creature instantly freaks out. It dives behind the shriveled form of the goddess for protection. Chansu grits his teeth, telling it he does not want to do this either. He explains that it is all for the goddess. The goddess realizes she might get caught in the attack too. Both she and the hamster begin freaking out together, but their fear is suddenly directed at something new. Chansu stops his swing and turns his head, asking if something is there. What he sees rising from the earth is a grotesque, hulking monster. He questions what this thing is. The creature's dark form completely towers over him. The terrified hamster bravely stands its ground in front of the goddess. It acts as a tiny shield, stopping the monster from getting any closer. Chansu immediately realizes that the little guy is not the monster at all. He now knows that he was completely and utterly mistaken. This hulking abomination is the real thing. It is the target his new combat skill is truly meant for. He wonders for a moment if he can actually do this. He tightens his determined grip on the scythe's handle and then charges directly toward the monster. He realizes that he can see the monster's weakness so clearly. He knows exactly where he needs to cut to activate the decapitate skill. He launches himself off the ground with incredible speed. He readies the scythe midair. He slices clean through its massive head, sending the severed piece flying through the air. The hamster and the goddess are both completely surprised by his sudden power. The monster's body begins to fade away into dust, signifying that he has completely defeated it. He turns to the goddess, asking if she is all right. He points out that the little hamster protected her in that brief but critical moment. He bows his head in shame, apologizing for his terrible actions. He says that he made a huge misunderstanding. He begs the little hamster to forgive him for his mistake. The hamster seems to realize how easy it was to misunderstand the situation. It communicates that it is okay, giving him a friendly lick on the face in acceptance. Chansu gratefully thanks the small creature. He decides to give it a proper name, Hamtal. He explains that he thought they would surely need a name for it. He knows they are going to be together from this point on. Hamtal begins to dance with joy alongside the little goddess. The system window appears again and states that the monster's head will be automatically transported. This is due to the Decapitate skill's special effect. The monster was officially called an immortal ogre. His hunt progress shows he has killed 1 out of a question-marked total amount. He thinks to himself that immortal ogre is too scary of a name for his very first monster kill. The system provides another tip. It says the transported offering now completely belongs to the goddess. He turns to look back at the goddess and he sees her glowing with newfound vitality. He comments that her ginseng skin seems to have gotten a lot smoother already. He exclaims that if he just keeps doing this, she will surely return to her original bountiful form. He eagerly declares that he is going to go hunt some more of them right away. He is super excited for the hunt with his new friend Hamtal following right behind him too. He arrives in a new murky swamp area. He sees that there are tons of the immortal ogres shambling all about this place. The system window then appears before him with a new tip. It states that unidentified points now exist in his status. It explains that points are used to utilize the world system and that they cannot be traded between different people. He wonders when he even got these mysterious points. He says to himself that it definitely seems like a very good thing to have. But first, he knows he needs to deal with all of the menacing ogres that are surrounding him. He feels glad that he has this incredibly powerful Decapitate skill. It is not even remotely hard to use considering the sheer power he gets from it. On top of everything else, he realizes these mud monsters are laughably slow. He activates Decapitate again, instantly killing 2 of the monsters in one swift motion. The system immediately tells him that he now acquires points by hunting monsters. He decides that he will start by keeping it simple for now. He plans on catching a nice, even 100 of them. His hunt counter shows he has now killed a total of 4 of them. Sometime later, on his triumphant way back, Hamtal looks super happy by his side. The little creature playfully imitates Chansu's powerful fighting moves. Chansu laughs and remarks that anyone watching would probably think that Hamtal was the one who did all the actual fighting. They share a very friendly atmosphere as they head back to the tree. He casually wonders why the creature is even called an immortal ogre in the first place. The quest window shows he has now killed an impressive 101 of them. He thinks that they die far too easily to ever be called immortal. But he guesses that he will eventually find out the reason if he just keeps on defeating them all. He finally makes his way back to his goddess at the base of the great tree. He joyfully says that she has become even more bountiful than before. He is amazed because the effect is even greater than what he had originally thought. He is certain that at this impressive rate, she will return to her original powerful form very soon. The tiny ginseng goddess waves her little root arms at him. He wonders what he should do now. Then he quickly realizes that she was not just waving but she was actually gesturing. He understands that she is telling him she wants to be lifted up. He gently picks her up from the ground. He then starts to take her toward the branches of the giant tree. When she places her little root hand onto the bark, she gestures to him. Chansu asks if he needs to do it as well, and her look confirms that he does. A new system window appears with another tip. It says that he can now use the skill, Blessing of Abundance. It also warns him that all blessing-type skills will consume his hard-earned points. He immediately activates the powerful skill. A bright green light instantly begins to appear and emanate from his hands. Hamtal and the goddess both look completely surprised. A massive amount of life energy now flows from Chansu and directly into the dead tree. Its barren branches suddenly begin changing color. Vibrant green leaves immediately sprout out from the wood. The massive tree even grows much larger in its overall size. It is now completely covered in healthy green leaves and is also sprouting beautiful flowers and fruits. He breathes out, realizing that it is now done. He looks up and he sees a giant, perfect red apple. He reaches up and plucks it from the branch. He sees that it is nearly the size of a basketball. He says he has never once seen an apple like this back on Earth. He also notes that it is so incredibly heavy in his hands. He admits that he really wants to eat it right away. But he knows that first, he must offer the first successful harvest directly to his goddess. He gets a bit excited just looking at her. He says that he hopes she quickly returns to her former, powerful self. He does admit, however, that her little ginseng form is actually pretty cute too. The goddess then begins to drain all of the nutrients from the giant apple. The process looks incredibly strange and kind of freaky. He wonders just how she is able to absorb it all like that. He says to himself that it would probably be best for him not to ever get on her bad side. He then turns to his companion, telling Hamtal that they can finally eat as well. Hamtal gets super excited at the prospect. Chansu reminds himself that she is a goddess who grants a truly terrifying skill like decapitate. He knows he cannot let his guard down around her. But the fresh, juicy apple is just way too good for him to pass up. He admits that he is low-key getting addicted to the amazing taste of these apples. Meanwhile, his companion Hamtal already looks like it is in a complete food coma. A mysterious figure watches the scene unfold from the shadows of the forest. The hidden observer watches Chansu devour the apples, wondering what in the world is going on. The unknown entity recalls that he defeated so many powerful monsters in just a single day. It remembers that he restored the giant, ancient tree in just a mere instant. And now he is just mindlessly consuming all of the magical apples it produced. The observer is left to wonder a single, terrifying question. Where did such a truly monstrous person like this come from? The narrator provides us with some vital world lore. We learn that in the past, Abundance, the faction in charge of all food, was by no means a small force to be reckoned with. Their power was led entirely by their unmatched high-quality agricultural products. But when the malevolent faction of corruption began violently absorbing all of the other rival factions, Abundance had no real choice but to flee from such a truly massive and overwhelming power. To survive this new world, the people of Abundance had completely abandoned their peaceful trade and instead began hunting monsters for the very first time. However, the collective forces of Abundance were entirely unfit for direct combat, and so they tragically could not win even a single battle against their foes. As a last and desperate resort, they chose to modify their one basic skill. It was not originally a combat skill at all. They had to modify their last and most basic skill into one they could somehow use just to fight. But even so, the faction of Abundance was ultimately doomed to complete collapse. This was because it was never a true combat skill meant for cutting off the heads of actual living monsters. It was only a modified version of a gathering skill, one that now let them bring back the heads of animals or monsters that were already dead. The factions of Abundance and Warriors simply were not a good match for one another. That modification to their skill was the absolute best that they could do in their situation. Of course, the narrator continues, if one were to be immensely powerful, then it would not be entirely impossible, such as is now the case with Chansu. Seeing this incredible power, his new goddess gets a little scared of him. Chansu, oblivious to this, just politely asks her for another apple. She still just silently wonders how a powerful child like this even got to her territory. She thinks that whatever the ultimate reason may be, he is now officially hers to command. He looks down and sees his tiny goddess hugging onto his ankle with her little root arms. He worries aloud and asks her, surely she is not going to try absorbing him now. Later in the day, we see that Chansa has collected a ton of fresh apples, all packed into his basket. He mentions that the goddess has already fallen asleep for the night. He guesses she must have been so very tired from their long day. He carefully lays her down to rest on some of the ancient stone ruins. He then pats his companion's head and says that Hamtal has also worked hard today too. There is then a sudden and loud clap of thunder from the sky. Chansa looks over, worried, and says to himself that surely the goddess did not wake up just now. He sighs, complaining that eating only apples has still left him so incredibly hungry. He now knows for a fact that they are just not enough to sustain him. A bright system status window then appears in front of his face. It announces that a special delivery event is now currently in progress. He says aloud that since so much has crossed over from Earth to this world, he supposes even things like this can exist here too. He wonders how it works though. For a proper delivery, do they not need to know who he even is? He then turns to Hamtal, noting that his companion must be tired too. He decides that they can both rest first before anything else. He gently places Hamtal right by the sleeping goddess. He tells his little friend that he can also sleep under a cozy little blanket right beside her. Back in the original world, we see a towering modern skyscraper. This is the Temple of Reincarnation, which is most likely just a modern dispatch trading company. We see an incredibly angry woman storming her way through the office and directly into a man's private room. She is clearly extremely pissed off about something. Her senior looks up and asks her why she is here instead of going to do the delivery. She retorts, asking if he is surely kidding with her right now. She complains that she is already busy to death as it is. She shouts that there is no way this assignment makes any sense at all. A status window identifies her. Her name is Hasejin, and she is the apostle of reincarnation. She continues her rant, yelling about the out-of-area delivery. She states that it is a 3-day and 2-night business trip. She is also furious that she does not get paid a single extra coin for it. This is because of the current free shipping event they are running. And she complains that all of that is just so some unknown client can buy a few apples. On top of all that, she says the client told them they do not have any money, so they are trying to barter for the items with even more apples. She finally asks her senior if she did something wrong to have to deal with all of this nonsense. Her senior casually replies, not at all. He claims it is actually quite the opposite of that. He says it is because she is just so incredibly passionate about her work. He tells her that work is a good thing. But if she just keeps working overtime every single day, her body will not be able to hold out for much longer. He suggests that she should use a business trip like this as a convenient excuse to just take a nice, long break. He explains that if she stays here at the office, she will just throw herself at even more work as soon as a single task ends. So, she should just go and clear her head for a little bit. She calmly states that she knows the real reason is just because there is no one else that they can possibly send on this trip. Her senior admits that he did not think she would find out so easily. He then starts physically shoving her out of his private office. He tells her that maybe she will get lucky and even discover a brand new secret realm while she is out there. She asks him what kind of secret realm nonsense he is yapping on about now, and tells him that he needs to just die. He waves her off cheerfully, telling her to travel safely on her trip. Kids, who knows? He suggests that maybe something really good will come out of it when she finally returns from the mission. She lets out a heavy sigh, but then finally relents. She says that she is going now and will get it going. She opens up her own little system window to check on her tasks. She immediately asks why there are so many new orders for her again. She complains that if they had known she would have to go so far out of her designated area, they should have prepared all of this for her much earlier. She vows that this entire trip had better not be a complete waste of her valuable time. If it is, she promises that she will get really, really pissed. We find out that Chance has been doing literally nothing with his time except picking apples. Right now, he is happily playing a game of hide-and-seek with Hamtal. He is looking around the apple-filled grove while his friend is supposed to be hiding. But Hamtal is actually just happily eating some of the apples he was supposed to guard. Chansu easily spots the apple that his friend has been munching on. He thinks that maybe Hamtal would be hiding right behind it as a joke. He reaches down and grabs Hamtal from his hiding spot, and his companion starts to freak out, caught red-handed. Chansu laughs, telling Hamtal that he got him. He then scolds his friend, reminding him that he told him not to eat the trading apples. He knows, however, that Hamtal probably cannot even help himself. Chansu patiently says that he will tell him again. These apples are not for them to eat. They are strictly for trading. He tells Hamtal that they are supposed to meet someone very important today. He knows his little friend cannot keep messing around like this if they want to make a good impression. Chansa continues, saying that since the delivery person has come all this way here, he cannot afford to make a bad impression during their very first meeting. According to the information he got when he signed up for the delivery event, this world, true to its name, is divided up into territories that are all shaped like giant blocks. This is why it is called a block territory. It is currently going through a massive grand summon event, and the ultimate goal for everyone here is total conquest of all the blocks. He learned that though it mostly looks like just ordinary land, there is a large, shimmering wall at the edge of each territory. And in order to move to another block, a person needs a special movement ticket. There is only one ticket granted to each player each day. Chansa knows that around him right now, there is literally nothing at all. He calculates that even reaching the nearest friendly village would take at least a full week of travel. He knows he almost ended up living off of nothing but apples out of sheer desperation. So he thinks that it is absolutely amazing that this new delivery service is only taking a mere 2 days to arrive. He does not have a clue how they could possibly manage such a feat, but whatever the method is, he knows that they are getting him all set up for his stay here. He is even going to be getting a special cushion just for the goddess. He also thinks that if he does not want to end up like a shriveled mummy himself, he had better keep raising her affection toward him so that she does not decide to absorb his own life force instead. Just then, a menacing shadow passes overhead. He immediately recognizes what it is as he pulls out his trusty scythe. He remarks that even the monsters here seem to be offering a kind of delivery service. This is because, since yesterday, they have been showing up in his territory on their own in massive hordes. It really is an undying monster, just like they said it was. He guesses that it actually revives instead of dying, and that is a more accurate term for what it does. But whatever the specific case may be, he knows he is going to have to go and take them all down right now. He raises his scythe high above his head. He then starts making light and easy work of the entire group of monsters. One of them suddenly begins to raise its shadowy hand up for an attack. He turns his head just in time to spot it, easily dodging out of the way of the slow attack. He thinks that, as he expected, its movements have definitely gotten slightly faster since their last encounter. He wonders to himself if the monsters are all growing stronger as he fights, just like he is with his skills. But even so, he notes that it is still extremely weak, so he does not have to worry about the new speed whatsoever. As the latest batch of monsters begin to fade out of existence, we see Heisijin watching the entire scene from high above in the sky. She does not know what to say at all about what she has just witnessed. She is even wearing the little winged Hermes boots. She simply says out loud that what she just saw was absolutely crazy. She then watches as Chansu and Hamtal happily celebrate their latest victory together. But she badly mistakes his joyful expression, saying that from her view, he looks extremely evil. We learn even more about the monstrous immortal ogre. A narrator explains that because they had given out more points than any regular monsters, they were once a main hunting target for apostles in this world. But it was discovered that no matter how many times it was killed, it would inevitably resurrect itself the very next day, even stronger than it was before. Even if you were to move your entire block of territory away from it, it would just keep relentlessly chasing after you. It was known to be an incredibly persistent and terrifying monster. On top of all that, it also left a debilitating curse on its chosen target. It would slowly wear them down over time until they eventually and inevitably collapsed from exhaustion, which is exactly why it eventually became a terrifying creature that everybody chose to avoid at all costs, everybody except for him, as Heisijin is just watching him effortlessly fight a whole horde of them right now. She wonders aloud what kind of lunatic this guy is. She asks if he is really not afraid of the creature's powerful retaliation. She also does not see any sign of him trying to purify the debilitating curse either. She realizes that there is only one possible explanation for this feat of power. She comes to the conclusion that he must be a legendary swordmaster. But she also wonders why a powerful swordmaster would ever be picking apples of all things. She decides that it is probably better for her not to provoke him at all. She does not want to have to figure out what might happen to her if she were to somehow upset him. Chansu, however, is just staring intently at his glowing system status window. He celebrates, thinking that he just got way more points than he ever could have thought possible today. He notes that his progress bar has already increased by a whole 10%. It seems to be going up by around 5% each time he fights the immortal ogres. So if using the blessing skill on one single apple costs 1,000 points, he knows that hitting a quota of 100 a day is no problem for him at all. At first, he had wondered why there was ever a holy shrine in a desolate place like this. But now he thinks that maybe it was just because this block is actually a secret jackpot block of land. Heisijin finally lands on the ground directly behind him. She introduces herself to him, saying that she is from the Circulation Trading Company and that she is his delivery person. He is surprised she managed to find his remote location on her very first try. She replies coolly that he just sort of stood out from everything else around him. And since he is clearly someone who can handle a powerful undying ogre like it is a mere toy, she reminds herself that she cannot let her guard down around him. She tells herself that she should not, but then she cannot help but to see adorable little Hamtal. She internally squeals, calling him a cute little dumpling thing. She thinks to herself over and over that she just really wants to touch it, again and again and again. Chansu notices her strange behavior and asks her if she is feeling unwell at all. She quickly says that she is absolutely fine. He starts to wonder if maybe he accidentally did something wrong already. He says that they will just get going then, but she just wants to be able to pinch Hamtal's fat little fluffy cheeks. They finally get to the massive apple tree, and she is still just completely fawning over cute little Hamtal. She then says that the freshly grown apples smell incredibly good. Chansu agrees, proudly stating that they were grown really well this year. She then stops what she is doing. She takes a proper look up at the towering apple tree, asking him how it got so incredibly big. He offers her one, asking if she would like to try one for herself. She asks him if that is really okay with him. He then casually throws one of the massive apples down to her. She comments that it is not just the gigantic tree. She notes that these apples themselves are completely massive as well. But she also thinks that when most fruits get too big in size, the overall sweetness usually suffers as a result. She muses that it could just be one of those classic cases of something that looks good but ultimately disappoints. She then takes her first curious bite of the huge fruit. She immediately starts to get one of those classic Food War-style ecstatic reactions. She declares that it is not just that the apple is incredibly sweet. She explains that the acidity is balanced perfectly as well. And that with this flavor alone, she is certain she could probably sell just one for over 100,000 gold. She then asks Chansu if each apple was really only priced at 2,000 gold, and he confirms that yes, it was. She tells him that no matter how much she thinks about it, a price that low is just completely absurd. He worries and asks her if maybe he overdid it with the price. He mentions that they were being sold much cheaper at other shops anyway. He asks how much she would actually want for them. She nervously puts her hands up, sputtering out the word, 2. Chansu mistakenly assumes she means 200, and he immediately declares that 200 is still far too low. She clarifies that 20,000 is how much he should get at the very least for each of these incredible apples. He immediately starts to freak out at the new price point. She then says that if he were to supply them to a high-end department store, he could probably get even more than 30,000 gold for each one. He asks in complete shock if he could really get all that just for some apples. She explains that she could have just hid the truth from him about their real value. But it would not be right to try and deceive a potential and very valuable long-term customer. She thinks to herself that she really only has one life to live. She is also still under the dangerous assumption that he is a powerful swordmaster. She tells him that these are not just apples. She insists that this kind of amazing flavor is the very first time she has ever had a fruit like this anywhere in the world. She continues that these apples clearly hold much more value than any other regional specialty item she knows of. And so she says that she will officially price them at about 20,000 gold each just for now. And she explains that with a more formal and written contract, they will then settle the remaining balance owed. She then asks him what he thinks of her generous offer. He confidently takes the pen from her. He starts to look over the fine print of the contract before smiling and finally agreeing to all of her terms. He says, however, that he does want to adjust just one small part of it. She replies that she thinks he might have written this new part wrong. She is surprised because her own share of the percentage just went up significantly. He explains that is because he would like to build a long and prosperous business relationship with her. And he also appreciated that she was so honest with him about the apple's real value right from the start. She starts to realize that he might be a much better person than she had originally thought he was. She sighs and realizes that she had completely judged a book by its scary cover. She then gratefully thanks him for agreeing to sign the revised contract. She says that now she is going to go ahead and hand him over all of the special items he had ordered. Inside the delivery containers are all the seeds, the food supplies, and the new cooking tools. It is everything that he had originally requested, as well as one special item, a familiar egg. It is a special commemorative gift from her company. She tells him it will definitely help with his future farming endeavors. Although, she adds, since he is already currently raising one cute little familiar, he probably does not actually need another one. Chansu asks her what she means by him already raising a familiar. She asks if the little one on his shoulder is not a familiar after all. She explains that it just looked way too friendly to be a simple wild monster. She concludes that she might have just misunderstood the situation. He tells her that it is fine, and that he would like her to explain more about the egg. She explains that the more of his special points he pours into the egg using his blessing skill, the stronger the familiar that ultimately hatches from it will be. But she also warns him that if he overdoes it with the power, the egg itself will just crack and the process will completely fail, so he must be careful with it. And once the egg starts to tremble violently, she highly recommends that he stops immediately. He thinks that he will have to try it out for himself to really get a good feel for how the entire process works. And then, she asks him about the expected harvest schedule for all of the apples they just made a deal on. He tells her that since he will also now be growing a variety of other crops, he expects to be able to harvest around 50 apples each day. She is shocked to learn that he means 50 apples a day, daily. They then worked out all of the complex logistics for their deal. They decided on the visit dates for pickups, and sorted out pretty much every other little detail that they would need for their new business deal to be a success. Chansu later thanks his goddess for staying hidden from sight until their meeting was over. He tells her it was definitely the right call to hide her from view right before his big monster hunt. He exclaims that he cannot believe that just selling some apples could possibly make his life this happy, and he knows that it is all thanks to her amazing divine power. He looks over at the sleeping goddess. He thinks to himself that in order to properly bless the new familiar's egg, he will probably need to go out and gather even more points for it. And so he decides he needs to increase his overall number of regular monster hunting customers, since his current daily supply of undying ogres now feels like it is a little bit too one-sided and predictable. He notes that overall, things are definitely going very smoothly for him now though. He knows he even has some much-needed breathing room to work with. And he knows that, of course, there were definitely going to be much bigger and more dangerous challenges ahead for him in his journey. But he says to himself that he is not at all afraid of what is to come. And if anything, he is actually greatly looking forward to facing whatever this world throws at him next. Now, back at the office, we then hear Haesejin's coworker asking her if the client was an apostle, or maybe even just a normal believer of some other faction. He also speculates that the mystery client might have even been a powerful person who uses the art of alchemy. Haesejin confirms to her coworkers that he is, in fact, Korean. She also states that he could also belong to one of the violent factions like the war or violence factions, or that he could possibly even be completely unaffiliated with any group at all. The man says that since all of the powerful apostles are known to be Korean anyways, that part of his story is not at all strange. But he still thinks that the idea of someone that powerful actually growing simple foods and being so combat-oriented at the same time just does not make any logical sense to him. Haesejin then adds that he had cut down all those undying ogres with just a single rusty scythe. She also mentions that he had only ever targeted their heads, and that it was over 100 of them in just one battle. Her stunned coworker theorizes that maybe this mysterious client could be aiming to become a legendary swordmaster through some kind of extreme handicap training, just like the famous Rohan once did. And he also decides that it would be better for them to now focus on keeping his very existence hidden, rather than just assigning a few simple guards to his territory. Haesejin says that she completely agrees with him. And her coworker then says that as for all of those incredible apples, he wants to immediately start selling them at the most high-end department stores. He knows that they will all be a guaranteed and massive hit with the wealthy customers. Haesejin has to physically stop him from taking another delicious bite from the samples. Her coworker asks what she is doing and tells her to move her hands right away. But she tells him in no uncertain terms that he has already eaten all of the delicious apples that she had brought back with her to the office. He indignantly reminds her that he is her senior at the company, and so he should get more. But she rightfully retorts that she is the one who had to go out and bring them all back here in the first place, though. Back in Chance's territory later that same night, he sits and wonders just what kind of familiar will ultimately come out from his brand new egg. He sincerely hopes that it is at least a cute one, or if not cute, at least a very capable one. But of course, he admits to himself that having both of those qualities at once would be the absolute best. Suddenly, the magical egg in his lap begins to violently crack open.